I was convinced $1,500 would cover everything in Bangkok. Turns out, it didn't even come close. Most Americans assume $1,500 a month in Bangkok guarantees a comfortable lifestyle. I believed that too until I tried it myself and ran into unexpected problems. If you're thinking about moving here, this insight could end up saving you thousands. I break down the real cost of living in Bangkok, expose what most expats get wrong, and explain why $1,500 may fall short of the lifestyle you're picturing. Backed by data from the Earth Awaits, Numbeo, and livingcost.org. Stick around until the end to uncover the real reason Americans struggle here. You think $1,500 a month in Bangkok buys you a dream life until you actually try living it. Before I ever booked a flight, everything I saw online pointed to the same conclusion. Bangkok was cheap. YouTube videos and travel blogs painted this picture of a vibrant city where your money stretches endlessly. Modern condos, street food on every corner, cheap transportation, and a lifestyle that felt almost too good to be true. It wasn't just one or two sources either. It was everywhere. Repeated so often, it started to feel like fact. Then there were the influencers. You'd see them sipping coffee in sleek high-rise apartments, lounging by rooftop pools, eating out every night, all while casually mentioning how little they spend. It creates this powerful illusion that luxury in Bangkok is somehow affordable on a modest budget. And if you dug deeper, Reddit seemed to confirm it. Budget breakdowns from expats showed numbers that looked completely doable. Rent, food, transportation, all neatly fitting into that $1,500 range. It felt practical, tested, real, not just marketing, but actual lived experience, right? So naturally, you start believing it. I did too, because on paper, $1,500 works, the math adds up, the examples are there, and everything seems aligned. So what did people actually think $1,500 a month would get them in Bangkok? In my head, and honestly, in most people's heads, it looked like a perfectly balanced, comfortable life. The biggest piece was housing. Everywhere I looked, I kept seeing the same numbers, $400 to $600 for a modern condo. Not just any place either, something clean, furnished, maybe even with a pool and a gym. It felt like a massive upgrade compared to what that same money would get back home. Then came food. Another $300 a month seemed more than enough, especially with Bangkok's famous street food scene. Cheap, delicious meals for just a few dollars each. It sounded like you could eat out every day without even thinking about it. Transportation felt like an easy win too. With trains, motorbike taxis, and ride-hailing apps, getting around was supposed to be fast and incredibly cheap. No car, no stress, no big expenses, just hop from place to place for a fraction of what you'd normally pay. When you added it all up, the numbers looked clean. Rent, food, transport, covered. And that left enough room to breathe, maybe even enjoy a few extras. Not luxury, but definitely comfortable. That was the expectation. A comfortable lifestyle in a world-class city where your basic needs are met and your daily life feels easy, flexible, even a little exciting. On paper, it all made perfect sense. The budget seemed realistic, even generous in some ways, and that's exactly why so many people, including me, believed it without hesitation. But in real life, it starts breaking down fast. The small costs no one talks about begin stacking up. The version of Bangkok you imagined starts slipping away, replaced by trade-offs you didn't expect to make. Stick around. We're just getting to the gap between expectation and reality where the real story begins. That dream $500 condo, it disappears the moment you start searching for a place you'd actually want to live in. At first, everything looks promising. Listings show sleek, modern units are right in that $400 to $600 range. But once you dig deeper, reality starts to shift. The good condos, the ones near transit, in safe neighborhoods, close to the lifestyle you imagined, cost more than expected. Location changes everything. Suddenly, that perfect condo is either far from where you need to be or way outside your budget. And then come the hidden costs no one really talks about upfront. Most places require deposits, often 2 months' rent plus 1 month advance, which adds a big upfront hit. Utilities aren't always cheap either, especially if you're running air conditioning daily in Bangkok's heat. Then there's internet, another monthly cost that quietly stacks on top. Individually, these expenses don't seem overwhelming, but together they start pushing your budget past what felt comfortable on paper. So you're faced with a trade-off. Go cheaper, and you're likely sacrificing something. Maybe it's a long commute, an older building, smaller space, or fewer amenities. Go for comfort and convenience, and suddenly you're spending far more than you planned. Because here's the truth, most people don't realize right away. You don't just pay for the room, you pay for location and convenience. And once that clicks, you start to see why that original $1,500 budget begins to feel tighter than you ever expected. The idea of eating for just a few dollars a day sounds amazing, until you try doing it every single day. At first, Bangkok street food feels like a cheat code. Meals are everywhere, fast, and incredibly cheap. You can grab a plate for the price of a coffee back home, and it feels like you've cracked the system. For a while, it works. Your budget stays intact, and you're eating well. But over time, things start to shift. Eating street food every day isn't always sustainable long term. Sometimes you want variety, sometimes you want something lighter, and sometimes you just want to sit in a comfortable space and relax while you eat. That's when your spending starts to change. Because once you step into Western style meals, the prices jump fast. Burgers, pasta, salads, or even a decent brunch can cost several times more than local food. It doesn't take many of those meals in a week to push your monthly food budget way past that $300 expectation. Then there's convenience. On busy days, food delivery becomes the easy option. Apps make it simple. Just a few taps and your meal shows up. But between delivery fees, service charges, and slightly higher menu prices, you end up paying significantly more than if you ate out or grabbed something nearby. None of these choices feel extreme on their own, but together they slowly stretch your budget. And before you realize it, that cheap food city starts costing a lot more than you ever planned. Keep watching, because the part about transportation, lifestyle, and invisible expenses is coming next. Getting around Bangkok feels cheap until you realize how often you're actually paying for it. At first, the BTS and MRT seem like a bargain. Clean, efficient, and far more affordable than owning a car. A single ride doesn't cost much, so it's easy to ignore. But when you start using it every day, commuting, meeting friends, exploring the city, it adds up fast. Multiple trips a day quietly turn into a significant monthly expense, especially if you're living even slightly outside the central areas. Then there's convenience. On hot days, late nights, or when you just don't feel like walking, ride-hailing apps like Grab become the go-to. One ride here, another there. It feels harmless in the moment, but surge pricing, traffic, and frequent use can push those costs way higher than expected. What was supposed to be occasional quickly becomes routine, and this is where lifestyle creeps in. Because living in Bangkok isn't just about getting from point A to point B, it's about how you spend your time in between. That daily coffee, it feels small, almost negligible, but make it a habit, and it becomes a steady drain. The gym membership you signed up for to stay consistent. The co-working space you use for comfort and productivity. These aren't luxuries, they feel like part of a normal routine, but they all come with a price. Individually, none of these expenses seem like deal breakers. They're reasonable, even justified, but stacked together day after day, they create a slow, constant bleed on your budget. And that's the part no one really shows you. The everyday lifestyle costs that quietly turn cheap into something much more expensive. It's not the big expenses that catch you off guard in Bangkok. It's the ones you barely notice until it's too late. At first, everything seems under control. Rent is set, food feels manageable, transportation is predictable, but then the invisible expenses start creeping in. The ones that don't show up in those neat online budgets. Visa, runs, and extensions are one of the first surprises. Whether it's renewing your stay or making quick trips out of the country, it's an extra cost that keeps coming back. It's not monthly, but it's regular enough to matter. Then there's health insurance. It's easy to overlook at the beginning, especially if you're trying to keep costs low. But living abroad without it isn't a great idea. And once you factor it in, it quietly adds another layer to your monthly spending. And then comes lifestyle. Nights out in Bangkok can escalate quickly. A casual evening turns into drinks, maybe a cover charge, late night rides home. It all stacks up faster than expected. The same goes for dating and maintaining a social life. Cafes, dinners, activities. It's part of living, but it's rarely included in those $1,500 budget breakdowns. Even travel within Thailand plays a role. With so many beautiful places nearby, it's hard to resist weekend trips. Flights, buses, hotels, they're affordable compared to other countries, but they're still expenses that add up over time. None of these costs feel excessive on their own. In fact, they feel normal, like part of the experience. But this is where most budgets quietly break, not in one dramatic moment, but in small, consistent leaks that slowly pull you further away from that $1,500 plan you thought would be enough. Make sure to watch all the way through. You won't believe what we found to be the breaking point of living in the city. It didn't fall apart all at once. It hit me quietly, somewhere between routine and reality. Around week 3 or 4, I realized I wasn't living. I was managing money. Every decision started running through the same filter. Can I afford this? That second coffee? Maybe not. Taking a grab instead of the train? Better not. Eating somewhere comfortable instead of grabbing the cheapest option? Probably shouldn't. What used to feel like small, normal choices suddenly felt like financial calculations. So I started cutting back. Not dramatically at first, just small adjustments. Fewer rides, cheaper meals, skipping little extras. But over time, those small cuts added up to something bigger. The lifestyle I imagined slowly started shrinking. Then came the social side. I found myself avoiding invitations, not because I didn't want to go, but because I knew it would cost me. Dinners, drinks, even casual hangouts started to feel like expenses instead of experiences. And the more I said no, the more disconnected I felt from the life I thought I'd be building there. That's when the stress started creeping in. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in the background. A constant awareness that things were tighter than they should be, that one unexpected expense could throw everything off, that I was always adjusting, always thinking, always trying to stay within a number that didn't quite fit reality. And that's the breaking point no one talks about. It's not about running out of money overnight. It's about realizing the life you came for doesn't match the budget you planned for. The difference in Bangkok isn't just how much you spend. It's how the city feels when you're not constantly counting every bite. When I compared a $1,500 budget to something closer to $2,200 to $2,500 a month, everything started to shift in ways I didn't expect. At $1,500, you're always making trade-offs. Location, comfort, convenience. But at a higher budget, you can actually choose better locations. Instead of living far out and commuting daily, you can stay closer to transit, closer to the city center, closer to the life you imagined. That alone changes your entire daily rhythm. Then comes freedom. At $2,200 to $2,500, you stop saying no to everything. You're not constantly calculating whether a coffee, a ride, or a dinner will throw off your budget. You can move through the city more naturally without that constant mental math running in the background. And with that freedom comes something even more important: less stress. You're not watching every expense with tension anymore. You're not avoiding plans or second-guessing simple decisions. The pressure lifts, and suddenly Bangkok feels less like a balancing act and more like a place you can actually enjoy. That's where the real expat lifestyle starts to show up. Not the influencer version, not the ultra-luxury version, but the balanced one. Comfortable condo in a good area, regular social life, eating out without anxiety, occasional trips, and enough flexibility to actually live instead of just manage. Because the truth is, the city doesn't change, you do. The difference between $1,500 and $2,500 isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the difference between surviving your lifestyle and actually living it. You'll want to know what the real problem is. Trust me, the real problem isn't that Bangkok is expensive. It's that Americans misunderstand what cheap actually means here. When people first look at Bangkok, they see the surface level. They see low street food prices, affordable condos, cheap transport, and they immediately assume the entire city operates on that same logic. And to be fair, for a short visit, it absolutely can feel that way. Bangkok is cheap for tourists, no question about it. You can come in, stay a few days, eat local food, take short rides, and live what feels like a high-value lifestyle for very little money. But that's where the misunderstanding begins. Because tourists are just passing through, they don't have to build a life here. For expats who want something more permanent, comfort, convenience, and familiar Western habits, the equation changes completely. Comfort means better condos in better locations, not the cheapest unit on the outskirts. Convenience means using ride apps when it's hot or late, not just walking everywhere to save money. Western habits mean coffee shops, gyms, imported groceries, and occasional Western meals instead of only street food every day. And that's where costs start to rise, not because Bangkok becomes expensive, but because your expectations of daily life expand. The lifestyle you actually want starts to look very different from the budget version you saw online. And that leads to the final truth. $1,500 works if you're willing to sacrifice your lifestyle, but most Americans don't realize how much they'll need to give up. Not just luxuries, but comfort, spontaneity, and sometimes even social life. The small daily choices you take for granted back home become decisions you constantly have to budget around. And in the end, that's the real story of Bangkok. Not a city that's too expensive, but a city that exposes the gap between the life you imagined and the life you're actually willing to live. What we reveal as the resolution might just make you think. The truth about Bangkok finally becomes clear once you stop comparing it to the internet version and start living it day by day. $1,500 a month is enough, but only under certain conditions. If you're a minimalist, if you're willing to adapt fully to the local lifestyle, and if your stay is short-term, then yes, it can work. You eat mostly street food, you choose simpler housing, you walk more, you say no to extra comforts, and you accept that convenience is not always part of the equation. In that setup, Bangkok can still feel affordable, even exciting, because you're living close to the ground level of the city. But the moment your expectations change, everything shifts. If you want comfort, $1,500 starts to feel tight. If you want a social life, dinners, drinks, spontaneous plans, it becomes restrictive. And if you want Western standards of living, whether that's housing quality, food variety, or daily convenience, the budget stretches past its limits quickly, because the truth is, Bangkok doesn't force you into a lifestyle, it reflects the one you choose. You can live cheaply, but you'll make trade-offs. Or you can live comfortably, but you'll need more room in your budget than most people expect before arriving. And that's the real lesson here. If you want to actually enjoy Bangkok, you need to budget for the life you expect, not the one you see online. Because online shows you possibility, real life shows you priorities, and once those two don't match, that's when confusion and financial pressure starts to creep in. In the end, Bangkok isn't about whether $1,500 is enough. It's about whether your expectations and your budget are finally speaking the same language. If you want more tips on living abroad, check out the next video to learn how to make your move smoother, more affordable, and filled with unforgettable experiences.